Hey everybody, welcome back. It is the Razzball Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I am Beaton, the handsome, mustachioed fantasy master Lothario with his own face on his shirt, sitting across from me. If you're watching on YouTube, is Gray Albright. How you doing over there, Gray, and all the other shades of gray?
I just realized it does seem kind of narcissistic to be having a shirt with your own face on it. I'm good, man. Good. Just you know what? Actually, I go out when I go like get a coffee in the morning, and they're like, yeah, for the cup, can I have your name? And I'm like, my shirt. Look at the guy with the shirt who has the same face as his shirt. Okay.
Do you feel like you have to keep the mustache to since you now have the shirt? Like if the mustache went, the shirt would no longer be applicable.
I talked to Kenny over at RotoWare to see if we can get a 50 Shades of Grey without the mustache, so I could shave sometime. But yeah, it's not happening. we don't
Not making
we,
another
we
design,
don't
no.
we don't sell enough for Kenny to do that work. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, way back when.
So actually, when you think about it, if you go and buy the 50 Shades of Grey T-shirt off of Razzball Shop or at rotoware.com, you buy enough of them, and then we will have made enough money to change the shirt. So then I can shave. So you're incentivized if you want to see me shave my mustache.
All right, so we just
actually, now that I say
20 more
that,
shirts.
Cougs could potentially go and buy 100 T-shirts off of it just to get me to shave. She may be like, yeah, I mean, if that's all it takes, I'll take 100 of them.
I mean, we can start something on Twitter, or Instagram or YouTube or something, some kind of pay for Gray to shave.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a reverse Movember.
You just have to go now until November, basically, without one. We just want to see what it looks like for baseball season.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. One thing I won't do is cheat like Aaron Judge.
I saw you look over your camera. I saw you, Gray. You read notes over there?
I did. I did a sideways glance at the podcast outline to do a segue. I did not do that segue without the help of the outline. I'll be honest. I'm sorry. I've been found out.
Oh, how far you've come since, the last 6 podcast hosts that were here with no notes.
It was yeah, people should go back and listen to our the podcast I did with excuse me. The podcast I did with Jeff / Ralph. There was good 40-minute chunks there where we were just improvising. Like, hey, so what else happened this week? I think Domingo Santana was good. Oh yeah, let's talk about him. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so Aaron Judge is a big cheater. Who saw that coming? Aaron Judge did, obviously.
Knew it was coming.
Honestly, this shows you. I feel like anyone who thought Aaron Judge was cheating, like anyone who, even for a moment, if they thought Aaron Judge was cheating, they should take a moment and be like, you know what? I'm way too far down a rabbit hole of fandom. I've lost sight of reality, and now all I care about is my Blue Jays jersey. it doesn't make any, honestly, even if someone was going to cheat, the Yankees of all teams, don't you think they'd have a better system in place than a split-second glance at the dugout? That's what they're relying on. They're relying on a literal millisecond of him looking over at the dugout. I think they'd probably come up with something better. I think they might. I honestly think they might. I don't know.
I mean, trash cans are out, Gray. There's only so many things you can hit in the dugout and make sounds.
Yeah, or maybe not to give anyone any ideas, because I know Aaron Judge and the New York Yankees listen to this podcast. But if you really wanted to do something, maybe, I don't know, out in the bleachers, like where the batter is looking, you flash a little like light or something.
Oh, that's already been done, Gray. That one's already been caught. They already got that one done.
That's already been caught. Yeah, what hasn't been caught yet is the old looking in the dugout.
I think that's actually legal. Like, I think looking in the dugout would be legal, though.
It would be. Oh, it's 100%. Like, that's the next level of this, is like nothing if he were cheating,
Allegedly
nothing he did actually was illegal. There was nothing done illegally. But on the other hand, who's cheating by looking over a split second before? Like, it's just not feasible to be doing that. Like, it just, like, that's why the thing in the light in the bleachers has been done. That's why they were doing sound. They were doing audio cues, because as a batter, you can't just look over in the dugout like a literal second before the pitch. I mean, it's not a good thing to do. It's just not good. Not good.
No, they just put like the new pitcher catcher communicators on like the testicles and just like give them a tap once for fastball, tap twice for breaking ball.
Anything, literally anything that doesn't rely on the batter looking away from the pitcher right before the pitch. That's really like the funniest thing is that the pitcher, it came out, I don't know, people probably heard by now, but it came out that the pitcher admitted to tipping his pitches because of course he was. But anyway, the pitcher admitted to tipping his pitches, and honestly, Jay Jackson, whatever he didn't need to tip his pitches. He threw like 6 straight terrible sliders. At a certain point, of course he's gonna hit it. Of course, he's the best hitter in baseball. I mean, come on, man, it's so dumb. That was really dumb. Like, I do think though that is really indicative of, like, if you even for like a minute, if you believe for a second even that Aaron Judge was cheating, you need to take a look at yourself, bro. You need to take a second and just re-examine things, because you might have lost sight on something.
Yeah, I mean, Major League Baseball cheat for the Yankees. They don't have to cheat additionally.
Exactly. Yeah. You know what? That's funny. Actually, when Aaron Judge was called out for cheating, Rob Manfred was probably in his commissioner's office being like, "Hey, are we a part of this? Did they
catch us? Did they catch us? No. They're doing some kind of eye thing. No, that's not us.
Yeah, no, they're doing their own thing. Oh, okay. Because we're doing other stuff, right? Yeah.
We're swapping different baseballs in. Humidors are adjusted.
Yeah.
Domingo kind of messed up the sticky substance thing for them, like.
Right, we're cheating in other ways for the Yankees. We're not a part of this whole eye glance thing. Oh, okay, cool. I just wanted to double check. So dumb.
So Domingo Germán did get a suspension for the sticky substance. It was some kind of black substance that was like the next game, and then on top of all the cheating.
Honestly, though, the Domingo Germán thing. That was the second time he was busted too. Like, they had caught him. I don't know if you saw this, but they had caught him, like, I think his previous start or the start before that, and they told him to go wash his hands. So that's my other thing. It might be just a Yankees thing, but what is up with this whole, like, go wash your hands? That's like, I mean, if you're caught cheating, isn't the whole point, like, you got caught cheating? It's not like you get a do-over. Go use some Jergens soap and wash your hands. Like, what
Well, I guess the thought is maybe, now I'm just throwing this out there for the other side of it. Like, maybe it's not an illegal substance. Maybe it was like the rosin. Maybe you grabbed somebody's bat in between innings for some reason, and like I don't know, Graham. Like maybe you ate, you grabbed your gum out of your mouth, and now your fingers are sticky. I don't know, but like
I'm sorry. Okay, no, I hear you, but my thing is though, like if
a
like
black substance on
even
the.
like Scherzer, supposedly they told Scherzer to go wash his hands. Like anyone that they tell go wash their hands, this applies to anyone they tell that to. Why are you telling it to them? You don't just say like, hey, here's your first warning. Like there's nothing in the rule books that says you have to give anyone a warning. Their hands are either sticky or they're not sticky. Like either you know how to check this or you don't know how to check this, right?
Yeah, no, I would tend to agree. Again, I think there's a little bit of leeway in there just because some refs or some umps are absolutely ridiculous about it and want it to be about them. So I understand a little bit of leeway, but I'm mostly with you. And again, you could clearly see it wasn't like rosin; it was a black substance. People were saying maybe it was like he had dip in. It's like I don't know any dip that looks like that. And also, I don't know if you've ever had anything sticky in your hands. If you go like wash your hands once, like quick, it doesn't fix anything. It just gets more sticky.
Right. Yeah. That's true.
Like you got to stick them in there for a while and get after it. Like you have to want it to not be sticky anymore. And on top of all,
that's gonna be the next thing. It's like if it's sticky,
umpire monitored hand washing.
It's like like you're gonna have umpires like instead of like a lotion bottle, they're gonna be squirting like gasoline on the pitcher's hands. Like here, this is the only thing that works with sticky. I'm sorry, but we're gonna have to put some gasoline on your hands. Don't go near any matches or fire. If you plan on going near a electrical spark of any sort, you might have problems later. just so you know, yeah.
You can't throw over 110 miles an hour.
Unfortunately, this is as an umpire, we were told by our umpire union that we have to warn the pitchers that we're going to put gasoline on your hands. So this way we're not liable for anything. Just
player safety. Yeah. And on top of all their cheating, Gray, the Yankees cheated even more, DFAing Aaron Hicks.
That was the one. That was their one like poison pill that they had to have. That was part of the agreement that they made with Rob Manfred. They're like, you know what? We're gonna let you do whatever you want, but you have to carry Aaron Hicks. Sorry.
He needs a major league job. He's Manfred's cousin's brother-in-law's sister's cousin. Like he needs a job.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Hey, you got a job for Aaron? Like what? Oh, come on, man. We don't want to carry Aaron. Yeah, no, you have to. I'm sorry.
He's got to get passed around from team to team. Everybody's got to do it once. Just how it works.
He's the no good cousin that has to work the cash register. Like, come on, just put him somewhere in the store. He's got to work for you guys. Sorry.
Rotating from house to house, every year. Nobody wants him for longer than that. That's how it goes.
Can't you have him like push a mop or something? You can't drop him off your team.
All right, great. Let's get on to some baseball news that's outside of the Yankees and all their cheating ways. The Dodgers have Julio Urias going over the 15-day out with a left hamstring strain. He's out at least a couple of weeks, maybe longer. They also have Dustin May out. He's going on the IL as well. So the pitching injuries just keep piling up. The Dodgers get one back and they lose two more. The good news is we get Gavin Stone up for an extended stay in the rotation now, and we are also getting Bobby Miller. We've talked about Gavin Stone we can kind of talk about him within this discussion. Bobby Miller's coming up. Last year in AA and AAA, he had 112 innings, 145 strikeouts, 4.25 ERA, 1.18 WHIP. The numbers this year don't look great. It's only 4 starts, and one of them he did get kind of beat up around. But I mean, this is a guy who throws it hard. Is the second best prospect or third best pitching prospect for the Dodgers. Are you interested in Gavin Stone in every league? 12 team, 15? Where's the line for Bobby Miller? And then, Gavin Stone's, I think, above him for both of us.
Yeah. Well, I think to a certain extent that prospect guys, and I would do this as well. What I'm about to accuse prospect people of doing, I would do myself. That they see a Dodgers pitcher and they're like, well, he must be good. And then they see a guy who's 6'5" and 220, and they're like, he's definitely good. Absolutely, he's good because he's
high 90s fastball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then they see the fastball, and they're like, he's absolutely good. There's no question. This guy is good. And I mean, they could be right. I've said this so many times before, but it bears repeating that, Clayton Kershaw, who I believe is a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't think that's a controversial thing to say. He wasn't good his rookie year. So it's like rookie pitchers just in general are very flaky. It's really hard to rely on rookie pitchers. As we even see that, the guys who come up and who are fantastic aren't necessarily the guys with the best stuff. Like Brandon Pfaadt is awesome. He's going to be really good someday. He hasn't been good so far this year. We saw Gavin Stone, he's been, kind of mediocre. Bobby Miller, as you mentioned, hasn't been great in the minors even. And then you have other guys who are maybe a pedigree below, Logan Allen, who's good. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Logan Allen's not bad. And the Guardians, they do some voodoo magic themselves on their pitchers. But, he's pitching as good as anyone. And, before the season started, everyone would have been Gavin Stone or Brandon Pfaadt before Logan Allen. And then you have Tanner Beebe, who's actually, a good pedigree and also pitching well. So it's just it's really hard to say. And anything that Bobby Miller did in the minors, I don't, it doesn't mean anything because the small sample size situation where it's if a guy has one bad start, like you said, and that makes his entire line look bad, another guy, you look at Grayson Rodriguez, he's supposed to be great. He has not been good. But at any point, he could turn the corner and figure it out. So I guess I'm just saying, with Bobby Miller, the stuff looks awesome. He looks like he could really be good. But whether or not he's good this year, it's impossible to say. I would pick him up because the stuff is there. And if he does go on a run, we've seen before, Dodger pitchers been really good, Gavin Stone, again, hasn't been great, but he could be good with this second call up. As I think as people are listening to this, he will have already thrown on Monday. So, I'm not gonna bury myself by saying he's gonna be great when he goes out and he's not great tonight. But pitching is fickle as it is. Going back to, the fact that don't draft pitching high, because, you have situations where, Drew Smiley, Nathan Eovaldi could be carrying teams right now. And anyone who drafted Brandon Woodruff is hurting for pitching. So it's there's no rhyme or reason really with pitching. It just, you go with the stuff and you hope the stuff plays. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. So, with all that said, I like Bobby Miller. I pick him up in just about any league. I grabbed him in a 15-team mixed league. I didn't grab him anywhere else, but that was really because I was just outbid on him. I think for waivers, I want to say he went for roughly like in the 150 to 170 range out of 1,000. So we're talking like $15 to $17 out of 100. That sounds about right. I bid on him. I didn't bid that much. I think I bid like in the $70 to $90 range out of 1,000. So $7 to $9. I would have took him though. I definitely would have taken him in most leagues just to see what happens. But yeah, I mean my expectations are pretty low, but hopefully he exceeds them.
Yeah, from the scouting reports and everything, it's really kind of the delivery from him. It can be a little inconsistent at times because there's a lot of moving parts to it, and so that's kind of the reason I think Gavin Stone got the bump in the prospect pedigree, and also just kind of the bump to get the start in the rotation before Bobby Miller got the chance, because for a long time they were kind of interchangeable in the prospect world. Like, Gavin Stone is, like you said, 6'5". He throws 96, 97 miles an hour. Like he has everything you want. Bobby Miller just kind of put it together quicker. It could go anyway. Again, I'm with you. I think you pick him up if he's available. You see what kind of happens there, and that's what it comes down to. Even on our best pitching, even on the top pitching prospects, we think they're going to be amazing, and sometimes they are. Sometimes you get Spencer Strider from last year. Sometimes you get Michael Kopech, who's just now maybe putting it together, like a year and a half, 2 years into his career. So sometimes
Right.
it's just different timing.
Yeah, no, totally. And speaking of a different Michael, and this also could come back to haunt me because he'll be pitching before people listen to this. But like for instance, I picked up Michael Lorenzen in most leagues for his 2-start week. And that was simply because he was getting two decent starts. I think he's seen the Royals and the White Sox this week. So I picked him up. He was pitching well. He gets 2 starts. If he looks terrible, I just drop him next week. That is what it is. But for just this week, I kind of like that play better than Bobby Miller in like in a shallower weekly league, because 2 starts is just I don't even know. Bobby Miller might get a second start this week. I don't even know. I know he's signed up for the 1 start on Tuesday. I don't even know like after that. I'm assuming once he's up for good, but you never know. Like Gavin Stone went back down. But anyway, I'm looking at like good matchups for 2-start guys almost, more than some of these like hot call-ups in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on the team you've built and the league you're in. If your pitching's good and you're set, you can kind of take these chances on these young guys and see if you do catch, lightning in a bottle. You can get an amazing line from them over the innings they give you. Otherwise, in a normal league, you're right. I mean, if you can get a good 2-start week, that's going to provide more value more often than getting a rookie in his, in one of his first starts. Even if it goes well, they're not likely to go deep into the game. So there's only so much they can do for you, at least immediately. Again, not saying don't pick them up at all, but just keep your expectations in check and then see where your team's at and what you might need. Because if you're 12th place in strikeouts, you need innings and strikeouts. Moving on, Jorge Polanco is going to the IL. Edouard Julien is coming up in AAA this year. He had 31 games, 4 home runs, 3 stolen bases. He's hitting .287, .442, .481. Royce Lewis is also due to come off the IL this week, so there's a possibility that Julian's stay isn't even the Jorge Polanco length. It could be for just a few days here. What are you doing with the situation? Is it one where you're just kind of picking up Royce Lewis and waiting for him to come off the IL? Are you picking up Julien and seeing if he sticks? Where are you at in this part, Greg?
Well, I think with Julian's been pretty good, since he was, I don't know, since he came up last time. I mean, he he struck out a bit much, but. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough call because I like Julien for like deeper leagues. Like in a lot of deeper leagues, he was going for a lot less than like Matt McLean, who I think we'll talk about in a little bit or something. Or maybe I think we talked about him last week, actually.
Yeah, we talked about last week.
Yeah, he was last week. But Julien is like, not quite right. McLean went off of waivers this week because he hadn't started before, so that was why. So, but like McLean, for instance, he went in my leagues for like I want to say $250 to $300 out of 1,000, so $25 to $30 out of 100, and Julien went for like $3 out of 1,000. Like it's just like it's just like a like whatever just throwing a couple bucks at Julien if you have like an empty spot in your lineup to see if you get something. I don't know. I mean, Julien's been good. Like he's got good power. Like I mentioned originally, the average and his contact is a little bit of an issue. So he could hit for a bad average. And, Polanco comes back. I don't know. I have real hesitation of saying anything positive about Polanco because he's been so bad for 18 months. I feel like Polanco is going to be a bench guy before the end of the season's up. But, if Polanco comes back, I guess that could, hurt Julien's playing time. And like you mentioned, Royce Lewis, he's another wrench in all this. That's like, what does Royce Lewis do? More than likely he just tears his ACL again. That's not to put that out on him, not to put the Kavorka on him, but he's looked good in the past. I think he's torn his ACL twice already. So yeah, I mean, hopefully he stays healthy, and if he does, I would guess Royce Lewis is up and gets enough playing time to be interesting in most leagues, and Julien then loses playing time and may even get sent down. I don't know. It's a tough call because it might come down to whoever's hitting, and if Polanco returns, there's not room for Polanco, Julien, and Lewis. The whole thing with Lewis was really interesting when Carlos Correa when he fractured his finger, I believe, last year for the Twins. So Royce Lewis came up, and then Royce Lewis tore his ACL. So he then got he got IL'd almost immediately after he got called up. So that was that ruined his opportunity. But now Carlos Correa is back there, and for now he's been healthy. So it's if Julien, I could see Julien losing playing time, but is it going to be Julien, Polanco, and Lewis? Something there has to give. There's just not enough. There's not enough at bats to go around with all those guys. Maybe, they also have Kirilloff, who's been injury prone. Larnach could get sent down. They have a lot of moving parts. So I don't know. I like Royce Lewis, though, in the big picture, if he's healthy and getting playing time. I do think there's a potential here for Royce Lewis to get, I think he comes off the IL on the 29th, so that's next Monday. He could potentially get called up within 5 days of coming off of the IL. There's no reason for him to be in the minor leagues, Royce Lewis, that is. He's done with the minors. As long as he's healthy, he should be in the major leagues.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, he's doing rehab right now, Gray. He's played 4 games. He has 3 home runs already. Royce Lewis, that is. So, right. I mean, you're right. It's not whether he's ready to play in the majors. It's just whether he's healthy enough to kind of play every day. Again, you said 29th. That's when he's eligible. So you got Julien for this week.
The Twins, sorry, not to interrupt, but I think the Twins, when they were developing players, to say, for all the coaches, for them to say to their players, hey, look at Byron Buxton emulate everything he does may not have been the best thing. That might be an issue.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully Carlos Correa gets an IL of being just really bad soon.
Hey, look at Buxton. Can you do more of like what he's doing? You mean the guy who's day to day with oblique? Yeah, do that. Do that thing.
Or the guy that you signed for 6 years, like $110 million. Be him too. Injured, very bad when he is on the field right now. That's also a good way to potentially go if you're in the Twins organization. Moving on to another organization that, I mean, honestly, they make the Twins look like geniuses. The Mets. We were talking about the Mets. They have called up Mark Vientos. Is he going to play enough for shallow leagues, Gray? Where are you grabbing him up? And do you think it potentially hurts Beatty, who did sit versus one lefty since Vientos is called up? Where are you at on Vientos and Beatty here?
Vientos getting called up to only face lefties that's goofy.
That's so Mets.
That's so Mets, man. That is very Mets.
Like if the Rays did it, we'd be like, they're geniuses. But it's the Mets, so they're going to screw it up.
Oh, totally. If the Rays did this, it'd be like Mark Vientos would have top 20 overall in the player rater value, and it'd be like, hey, whatever the Rays are doing, it's brilliant.
It's fine. Don't worry.
Don't worry. Just pick them up. But yeah, Vientos, man. I have him right now in a 15-team mixed league, but it's a daily league, so I'm able to move him in and out of the lineup for when he's not playing. But I just don't think he's going to play enough outside of like lefties. At this point, at least, it looks like he's only seeing lefties, which is basically useless for most fantasy leagues. Like, especially weekly leagues. Like, even the deepest weekly leagues, if you have a guy who's only facing lefties, that's bad, man, because you're missing out. You're missing out on runs and RBIs, and it's just
daily. It's hard.
Yeah, it's just really not good. And Brett Beatty, as you mentioned, like he could be sitting versus lefties, which is not as bad because obviously there's less lefties, so it's not awful for his value. I still like Brett Beatty in just about every league for and for daily leagues especially, it helps. For weekly leagues, it becomes a little more challenging, but like in a weekly 15-team league, I would still start Brett Beatty. 15-team mixed league and deeper, I would start Beatty still. Vientos, I don't think I'd start him in a 15-team mixed league at this point if he's facing lefties only. Like that's I don't think you can start him. Like you're better off going with like a guy with like, I don't know, Lamonte Wade or something. Like I don't know. Whoever's out there, you're better off going with one of those guys rather than Vientos. But Vientos does have good power. I mean, he's probably as good as Brett Beatty in the big picture if he were playing all the time. Like he could potentially hit like 25 plus homers in 2/3 of a season. But yeah, if he's not playing, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, you can maybe pick him up and just see if something happens if you got the roster room. But you're right. There's not the playing time for him right now. Anybody that's just facing lefties, unless you're in an NL only, that's pretty much not something that you can throw in your lineup. So maybe you can stream him on those specific days and pick him up in daily leagues, but that would be about the only thing I think he's going to provide here, other than maybe sucking some at-bats away from Beatty, as you mentioned. I'm still starting him at like a corner infield spot with Beatty. If you've been starting him, I mean, sitting versus lefties isn't the end of the world. So it'll be fine for Beatty in the end. May lose out on some counting numbers. Bo Naylor got a very quick trip up. By the time you listen to this, he may already be back on his way down to the minors. He got called up to be the 27th man in the doubleheader. In AAA this year, he has 9 home runs. He's hitting .257, .391, .507. But you can understand that Cleveland can't fit him in because they've got Mike Zunino hitting 172 with a 46% K rate and Cam Gallagher hitting 100 with No home runs and 1 run scored.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I honestly, Zunino and Gallagher should have been DFA'd like before they were signed.
Yeah, why is Kim Gallagher starting? Like, I've never heard anybody say he's a good like framer of the ball or anything.
And the Guardians really need hitting too. Like their offense is really struggling. Like it doesn't make any sense. You could like Bo Naylor, you put him right next to Josh Naylor, and you got like it's basically
the Naylor boys.
It's basically like Requiem for a Dream with Jennifer Connelly. Like, whoa, what's all this Naylor stuff? What's going on? I like Bo Naylor. I saw in like one league of mine, someone threw $25 out of 1,000 to grab him. It's not a bad gamble. They could have thrown $1 out because no one else bid on him because Bo Naylor
he was up for a game.
He was only up for the doubleheader. So I don't even know. Honestly, I don't know why they bid 25. They could have bid 2, but either way, I don't mind the flyer in like super deep league. Like probably at this point, I'd probably say AL only, like a stash. Maybe a 15-team mixed league stash if you're really struggling in a 2-catcher league.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. I mean, I'm assuming at some point Zunino or Gallagher are going to get DFA'd, or just like traded for cash considerations or whatever. I mean, they shouldn't be starting, let alone the only guys that are starting on the Guardians. So, as catcher at least. So yeah, I like Bo Naylor, but he's in the minors as of right now.
Yeah, he has actually already been optioned. I just checked the transaction wire. He's already been optioned back down. Definitely a name to add to the list because I do think he comes up at some point, but Cleveland is just trotting out Zunino Gallagher for now, so we'll see how long that lasts. Matthew Liberatore is going into the rotation after spending a little bit of time in the bullpen. This year, he has 46 innings pitched. He had a 3.13 ERA, a 1.17 WHIP, 30% K rate, and 9% walk rate down in AAA. He's another high velocity fastball, 96 plus. Curveball technically has a slider and change, but they're really just kind of a mix up. Show me pitch. I mean, Liberatore was grabbed everywhere that I saw. Are you putting him in the Gavin Stone, Bobby Miller area? Above them, where is he fitting?
It's hard for me to say really any ranking on rookie pitchers because they're all so fickle that it's hard to say. Because like Liberatore could easily be better than any other rookie pitcher, but he could also be the worst of all of them, like we saw with Grayson Rodriguez. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I like him though. I like Liberatore. I think he's probably. I watched him on, what was it? I think it was Friday. I watched his start, and he looked great. Like I was pretty impressed. Like you said, he really only has 2 pitches, fastball and a curve, but the curve is like unhittable.
Nice. Yeah.
The curve is basically like you can't hit the curve, even if you know it's coming. So like he could lay on the curve like, Lance McCullers once did and, lose his forearm in like 2.5 years, but hopefully not. But he could potentially just like lean on the curve that heavily in that one start. Super, obviously it's only one start, so it's a small sample, but he threw the curve 34% of the time. So yeah, I mean, he's leaning on it about as much as you can lean on it. And he's good. He like his fastball and his curve are all he needs. As I've said before, like if a pitcher only has two good pitches, it's fine as long as they're 2 good pitches. And he has really good pitches, 2 of them. So yeah, I don't know. The slider supposedly grades out well, but he didn't really throw it much, and it didn't really stand out to me. I mean, he only threw it a handful of times. In that one start at least. Yeah, I mean, I think he's great though. Like if you want to like grab a rookie pitcher, and also by the way, you shouldn't grab them all. Like that's not good. Like don't be carrying 5 rookie pitchers because it's gonna get ugly at some point. But yeah, if you want to throw your lot in with Liberatore, go for it. His last name sounds kind of like a erection pills or something, doesn't it? It sounds like I should be speaking very fast afterwards with all the side effects. Liberatore is you could have you get diarrhea or yeah.
Do not take if you're allergic to Liberatore. That's my favorite. It's like do not take if you're allergic to
there's a potential for runs with Liberatore. Yeah, I mean, I didn't understand. Like the Cardinals have done so many wacky things this season that him going to the bullpen was just it was like just one of many wacky things that they've done. So I didn't really think much of it. They said he's going back into the rotation. I want to believe that. I don't. He's better, at least better than Matz. At least. Maybe better than everyone in their rotation, to be quite honest, but at least better than Matz. I think I'd grab him in any league. In a 10-team league, there's so many guys available that it's like, probably not. But in a 12-team league, sure. Yeah, I would grab him there.
Yeah, I would say if I'm ordering them myself, I think I'm still putting Stone at the top, Liberatore second, Miller third amongst the 3 main pitchers that we've talked about here, the rookies. And Miller partially third just because I think he's the first one that's back in the minors as soon as the Dodgers get healthy, and they have plenty of pitchers who can get healthy at some point to come for his spot. But again, easily Miller could outpitch Stone and that could reverse. So I just think Gavin Stone's stuff looks absolutely disgusting, and I think it'll work out in the end. Tyler Glasnow, who's not necessarily a mystery other than how long will he stay healthy, is scheduled to come back this Saturday. Gray, how interested you are in Glasnow? I mean, he tends to be good when he's on the field. It's just that on the field part.
Yeah, that little bugaboo. I saw one of the a fantasy site wrote something like his highly anticipated debut was going to be Saturday versus the Dodgers, and it's like that makes everyone's job so much harder. that highly anticipated, man. That right there, it's like highly anticipated by who? The one person in your league who has Glasnow? Yeah, that person is highly anticipating. But like in reality, right now is probably the best time to sell Tyler Glasnow in your league if you have him, because at no point is his value going to be as high as it is right before he pitches. Because once he pitches, everyone then realizes again, like, oh yeah, he's a 4-inning pitcher, right? That's right. I totally forgot that he on his career he has a 4 ERA and a 1.24 WHIP in his career. He's good. I mean, don't get me wrong. He gets strikeouts. Like he's fun to watch, I guess, if you're a Rays fan or if you have him in fantasy. But, I mean, I don't know, man. I think, like, Tyler Glasnow is great for, like weeks of the season. Like, he's good for, like, maybe 12 starts, possibly. Like, his career high in innings is around, like, 110 innings in a season. Like, it's not – I mean, there's no guarantees in fantasy or with, pitching – in general. So, I mean, yeah, Glasnow is, potentially could be really good, but I mean, he hasn't really been a huge, great fantasy starter at for more than a handful of games at a time. And even then, you definitely like. I think right now, like you forget how many starts he goes out there, and it's like, oh, he threw like 4 innings, and he looked good. I mean, he looked, he's a handsome fella. I don't know. He's fine. He's good. I like Tyler Glasnow. Like for real baseball, I think he's fun to watch for real baseball, but for fantasy, I think people get that they get clouded in their head the difference between real baseball and fantasy. And for fantasy, I mean, it's like him or Chris Bassett. Chris Bassett's going to be more valuable this year than Tyler Glasnow. I mean, I don't know. Maybe everyone realizes that. Maybe I'm saying the obvious, but it feels like, no one would ever say Chris Bassett's highly anticipated debut. No one would ever say that. Like,
I don't know about that.
They would just be like, yeah, Chris Bassett's, he's starting this Saturday. Like, okay, but Tyler Glasnow gets the highly anticipated. Like, okay, sure, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, Glasnow's always had that high K rate. Like, he's a 30% plus K rate guy. Always has been. That's just fun to watch. It's good to see when you look at your team, you're like, okay, he went 4 innings, but he had 9 Ks somehow in 4 innings. That's amazing. And that's kind of how it works sometimes with Glasnow. You will get some 4 innings because it's the Rays and it's Glasnow, and that's how it is. Or I guess who throws more innings rest of season, Tyler Glasnow or Jacob deGrom?
Oh, for some reason I thought you were going to say James Paxton. Jacob deGrom or Glasnow? That's a tough one too. I'm going to say over under 60 innings, and I'm going to say Glasnow by just a hair, which literally because he has beautiful hair. I'll say Glasnow barely.
He's currently closer to coming back, so we should technically see him sooner.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, deGrom is like, every time you hear an update on deGrom, it's like, oh, he's only a few weeks away. Like a few weeks? Dude, how many weeks? You've already been out for weeks. How many weeks do you need, man?
More. A lot more, Greg.
More weeks. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if Glasnow throws like, I'll say Glasnow's over under is 75 innings, and I'll say deGrom's over under is 60. I feel like 60 might even be high for deGrom, honestly. I mean, if they say deGrom's coming back, like, in a couple weeks, I would say after the All-Star break. I would probably say like, deGrom's going to return the first week after the All-Star break, and Glasnow's, they're saying this Saturday. You assume he's going to pitch for a month, and then something's going to crop up because something always crops up, and Glasnow will be injured again. I wouldn't be surprised if Glasnow is back on the IL before deGrom returns.
And for anybody listening that's like, oh, come on, deGrom's going to throw more than 60. If he hits the over on 60, it will be the most innings he's thrown in 4 years. Like,
yeah.
So
that's
60
a lot.
is kind of the number. All right, great. We're going to do a Anchorman theme quick fire question here. So I'm going to throw you a name. It's either a scientific fact.
Oh.
It's Sex Panther, which means it works 60% of the time, every time.
What?
Or it's I don't believe you.
Okay. All right. Let me clarify. So it's a scientific fact means it's actually a fact, right?
Yeah, they're doing good.
Okay.
You're ready. You're buying in.
Okay, I'm buying in. Okay, and Sex Panther means I'm buying in with hesitation.
Yes.
Okay, and I don't believe you means I'm not buying it.
I don't believe you. Yes.
I don't believe you. Okay. I think I got that. Okay, go ahead.
All right, it's top of the list. 2 Cardinals, Nolan Gorman, and then Nolan Arenado.
Okay. So I'll say for both of them that it's a scientific fact. I think with Nolan Gorman, they've really they've committed to hitting him in the middle of the lineup, which is great for fantasy value. On its just that on alone, it's really good. Because you get runs and RBIs, obviously, but like I think his power is for real. Like he looks like legitimate. I think the average, while a little bit high, maybe he's hitting 302 as of right now. Maybe that's a little high. Maybe he's more like a 260 hitter. But I think like 27 to 30 homers, a handful of steals, 260, 255, 260 average in the middle of the lineup. That's pretty valuable. So I'll say scientific fact for Nolan Gorman. And then Arenado, I think the track record, more or less speaks for itself. I think he's going to be fine. So the scientific fact.
Yeah, I only threw Arenado on there because people were starting to panic a little bit after he started the season. The first month, he hit 239, had 2 home runs. People were panicking and losing their minds. He's hit 338 with 7 home runs so far in May. So everything seems back on track for Arenado. Maybe a little bit of a hangover from the WBC or something like that. Lourdes Gurriel.
Lourdes Gurriel. Interesting. Okay. I'll say, I'm going to say Sex Panther, but, leaning on the side of scientific fact because, like, we have seen him be good before, and he makes such good contact that I don't think the average is necessarily going to bottom out. Like, right now, he's hitting 304. I don't think he's going to necessarily, like, hit below 280. So he's a good contact guy, and his power, while not incredibly great, not necessarily scientific fact. I do think Sex Pantherish, leaning on fact because I think he could probably get to 20 homers. He has no real speed though, so 20 homers, 2 to 4 steals, 280 average, in the middle of a lineup again. It's not terrible. It's there could be better people in some leagues, but in a deeper league or even like a 15-team mixed league, that's valuable. I don't mind Lourdes Gurriel Jr.
Yeah, so he has 7 home runs to this point in the season, Gray. I guess for 10 and 12 team purposes, do you think he gets to 20 end of year?
That's probably where I put his over under. So yeah, I'll say 20.
Okay. So just to give everybody it's like scientific fact because he's going to be useful, Sex Panther because maybe it's not overly useful for your team.
I like when you put the outlines together when you're so stoned. when you're just out of your mind, hitting bong hits, and you're just woo!
I think everybody's gonna enjoy this, Gray. I think we're gonna get comments. People do the quick fire Anchorman thing again.
If they're as high as you were when you put together the outline, absolutely.
That's very possible. I mean, they made it an hour into a baseball podcast. It's very possible, Gray. Okay. Moving on, we're gonna go with some lesser names here. Britton Doyle, who some people may be like, who? And other people are like, oh yeah, I grabbed him up. He's in my roster this week. What are you doing with Britton Doyle? And he's a Rockies outfielder. He's been up for about 20 games now, and he's just hit, Gray. He's been hitting great.
Yeah, no, I mean, actually, well, I'll say, because it's part of the, I have to say, Sex Panther. I'll say Sex Panther. He's actually been a guy who I've started in weekly leagues and been pretty happy with him. If you look at roster resource, it shows him being benched versus righties, but I don't think that's accurate. He's been playing a decent amount of times, enough where I haven't felt totally bad about starting him in weekly leagues. He's been good enough, and he's solid for power and speed. So power and speed goes a far way. I think his K rate is, it's at over 35% right now. So I think his K rate's going to catch up to him, and he could potentially hit like 230, 235. He's at 262 right now. So his average could come down a little bit, but the power and speed will be fine. And, Coors, it could be worse places, and I think he plays enough. The problem, the reason why he's a Sex Panther versus Scientific Fact is I just don't think he's necessarily, this good, because of the K rate and the potential for a platoon and Bud Black. Speaking of getting high, Bud is an issue. So yeah, I mean, I like him, but I'm not 100% sold.
No, I'm pretty much here with you on every step of the way there. I think the power and speed could play, but you're right. The strikeout rate could bring that average down and could get it to a spot where I don't know if the power speed is going to make up for it and continue to get him the playing time that he's been getting. And to your point, he started 5 of the last 6 games for the Rockies, so it's not as though he's just a strict platoon guy. Like, he's getting more playing time than not. A name that's very familiar, but we haven't really thought of in a while. Michael Conforto has started to hit a little bit gray. The season numbers still look dreadful, but at least over the last couple weeks, he started to put it together. Are you interested in Michael Conforto being added to any of your rosters? 316, 4 home runs over the last 2 weeks.
I don't believe you.
That's what he's done in 38 at bats. He has 4 home runs, hitting 316 for the Giants.
I know, but that's the multiple choice.
Oh, okay.
I don't.
You don't believe Michael Conforto.
No, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. You're the one who set up the caveats here, or the categories. I don't believe you. Yeah, Conforto has been fine for the occasional homer, but he has so much weak contact with so many fly balls in a bad park. He looks like a 24 to 27 homer guy with a 210 average that does nothing else. Just like the occasional homer that, in an NL only, you do what you got to do. In a 15-team mixed league, maybe if you're really struggling for power, but in most leagues, he's not. He unless he's hot and he comes out of this, but his contact is so weak. I have to think it goes back to the shoulder. I don't believe him.
All right, that's completely fair. Keep an eye on him in case he does. The contact numbers go up, but you're right. The contact numbers have been still just not great. How about Dominic Smith for the Nationals, Gray? He's hitting somewhere between 2nd and 6th, depending on, the pitcher they're facing that day. But over the last couple of weeks, he's hitting over 300. It's really just like an empty average guy, but there's certainly leagues where that matters.
I don't believe you.
Okay. Oscar, one last one on the hitting side. We'll move to some pitchers. Oscar Mercado, a name that just haunts certain people like myself.
I'll say Sex Panther, but leaning on I don't believe you. I think there could be potential because the Cardinals just invent players, even though we everyone here I think liked Mercado at a certain point when he was with Cleveland, but that was many moons ago, and he hasn't really even looked good in the minor leagues. I worry that he's not. I worry he's not very good, but he does have speed. So maybe if you can platoon him, because I think he's only going to face lefties. So if you can platoon him, then fine. See if you catch lightning in a bottle. But yeah, I don't know. I'm leaning on I don't believe you, but maybe Sex Panther.
Yeah, the only thing kind of holding me up a little bit is that he's had 11 plate appearances, hasn't struck out yet. That's a good sign, but Ks were never a big thing with him, so that's really not a new development. Keep an eye on it, but I'm definitely leaning. I don't believe you. I'd probably buy into Dominic Smith's empty average or Michael Conforto's random power before jumping back on the Mercado market train there. No, thank you. Moving over to the pitching side, Joe Ryan, who is the number one starting pitcher on the player radar, Gray. Where are you at on him?
Scientific fact.
I mean, yeah, he's number one on the player radar. It's a fact.
It's a fact. I might have mentioned before. I wrote a sleeper post for Joe Ryan.
You might have mentioned like 85 times.
I might have mentioned it 86 now. we're counting currently. Yeah, I mean, I love Joe Ryan. I only wish I would have drafted him in more places. It was like, I mean, he felt like an obvious, just like free money where he was going in drafts. He's great. It's like, I've said this before, but if you're striking out guys and not walking anyone, you can't go too wrong, man. You just can't. Like, it can only be so bad, like that's why even like, speaking of, twins, like Bailey Ober is not really that bad either, because if you are able to, strike out a few guys and walk nobody, that's helpful.
Yeah, well, you mentioned him, Bailey Ober. Where does he fit on this scale?
Yeah, he's scientific fact too.
All right. Now, this is my boy. I've been drafting him for years, waiting for this to happen. It's finally happened. I took so much abuse during draft season every time I take him, but he's on every single one of my rosters. Mitch Keller, number 2 on the player radar. Scientific fact?
Yeah, he's scientific fact as well. He's been so good, and I didn't see it coming, but, it's like things like Mitch Keller are reasons why you don't draft pitching high. Like, you could have had Mitch Keller in any league if you saw the breakout coming, or you probably, in most leagues, you could have just picked him up off of waivers. Like in 98% of leagues, you could have just grabbed him off of waivers.
I'm not in.
Yeah, well, leagues that obviously Beat On isn't in, but yeah, I mean other leagues.
Yeah, those 98%.
Yeah, I mean Beat On's only in 2% of leagues, so I think my math is right there. Yeah. I like Mitch Keller. Scientific fact.
All right, I don't even feel like I need to ask this one because we both loved him coming into the season. I love him because he's a Cubby. I just want to hear it. Justin Steele.
I might have mentioned this before, but I wrote a sleeper post for Justin Steele as well. Again, scientific fact. Justin Steele has been like, he hasn't been as good as Joe Ryan, like his peripherals at least. And I think like Justin Steele might be a sell if you can get something, because I do think like he's probably at the peak of his powers. Like, I don't think Justin Steele is a number 1. Like, I like Justin Steele. Don't get me wrong. I drafted him this year. I loved him coming into the year. I wrote a sleeper post. I feel like Justin Steele is kind of like where I was with Tony Gosling last year. Like, I liked Gosling, but he was pitching, a little bit above his head. And I think Steele might be as well. But, scientific fact, because we both love him.
Yeah, I mean he's been great. BABIP's maybe a little low. Strikeout rate's actually a little bit lower than I'm was thinking it was. It's only at 22%. So I think maybe strikeouts come up. Maybe ERA comes up with it a little bit. But maybe the biggest hindrance is the Cubs suck, and he only threw 119 innings last year. So how many more are they going to ask him to throw with the Cubs ultimately sucking in the end? So that's a potential concern, but I love Justin Steele. I think you're right, though. I think this might be like an ideal time to potentially move him if somebody's looking like they're going to use him to bounce back their pitching. They can use him for a little while, but then again, I think there's going to be some limits put on him. Lance Lynn, over his last 2 starts, he's gone 13 innings. He has a 2.08 ERA, a 1 WHIP. He has 13 strikeouts. Like, are you gonna jump back on the Lance Lynn train here, Gray?
Well,
where are you at on him?
That's a train with a rather large caboose. I'll tell you that. I'm in on Lance Lynn because I drafted him, so I'm stuck. I am absolutely on the Lance Lynn train because I can't get off of it.
Just can't quit that big behind.
I'll say Sex Panther because I think Lance Lynn would appreciate being called a Sex Panther.
Being called a Sex Panther.
Yeah.
I feel like it's something he would wear. He would 100% wear something
probably.
like Sex Panther. I believe that. I think that's very accurate.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Sex Panther as well because I don't believe it until the velocity comes back for him. He needs another tick on the velocity before I'm fully there. Patrick Corbin. I really didn't want to put this on here, but like
I don't believe you.
asking.
And also Patrick Corbin, not only do I not believe you, but Patrick Corbin he helped me have one of my best laughs this past weekend when I saw someone bid like $70 in fab for him. What? Dude, I mean, honestly, it's like people are out there giving advice. They should be able to say like, hey, just so you know, I bid $70 on Patrick Corbin. So if you want my advice, you're welcome to it. But I bid $70 on Patrick Corbin.
$70 on Patrick Corbin.
$70 and no one else even bid. People are like, dude, if you want him, just bid $1. No one wants.
This is one of those situations. There's free pickups. You just grab him. Like,
yeah, man. Yeah, like seriously, like I mean, I'm not above picking up terrible pitchers if they have like good matchups. So, you know, like if it's a good matchup, fine, whatever. But that's $1 pickup. That's not a $70 pickup. Anyway, I don't believe Patrick Corbin. His Ks are awful. I mean, his command's been better, so that means his command being better also helps the fact that like, you know, his homers are down a little bit from like, you know, how awful they were the past 2 years. So maybe he's a 4.5 ERA guy versus like a 5.5 ERA guy, but he's still not very good.
No, he's absolutely not very good. And even if by chance he gives you 6 innings of 2-run ball, you're not getting strikeouts. He's got a sub 14% K rate. He for the season, he's a 4.47, 1.38 guy. Over the last 4 years, he's a 5.65, 1.55 guy. So you're playing with fire. Like it's coming. The reckoning is coming. If you feel like you can figure out when it's coming, good on you. Dean Kramer, Gray. I've actually added him in a couple of leagues. He's been pitching great for a majority of the season, really. Where are you at on Dean Kramer? I don't really understand why he's been pitching
like
well.
that you're able to say that, and then I look at his ERA and it's 4.61. Like I guess it was those other starts when you weren't on the Dean Kramer.
He had a tough couple starts to begin the year, but since then, like it's been good.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, he's been fine. I'm gonna say I don't believe you, and I don't believe
totally
you.
Totally fair.
I don't believe you, but you know that goes hand in hand with like if he has good matchups, then I'm fine streaming him. I mean, but Dean Kramer, L'chaim to the Jewish brother Dean Kramer, but I'm not actually picking him up in fantasy unless his matchup is just so good.
You know what's the problem with Kramer has been? So like I picked him up like towards the end of April. I started him at Detroit. That's when I picked him up. That was terrible. That was 5 innings, five earned. So the next one was at Atlanta. Can't throw him there. He went 6 innings, 1 earned. Can't throw him at Tampa Bay or versus Tampa Bay, 6 innings, 0 earned. Maybe I'll throw him at the Angels. He had 2 good back ones, 5 2/3, 3 earned. I'm definitely not throwing him at Toronto, 5 1/3, 1 earned. Like the matchups aren't even working.
That's actually a good that might be a good area for a glossary term for like in our Razzball glossary, like a guy who's like a streamer, but when he has good matchups he pitches awful, and when he has bad matchups he pitches well. There's something there to that. Like, yeah, I mean that's just I think Dean Kramer might be passive aggressive. I don't know.
call him Cosmo. I mean, just bursting through the door whenever he feels like it.
Yeah, with no rhyme or reason.
All right, moving on to Jack Flaherty, Gray. He had a good outing his last one. He's been so up and down. The velocity's been up and down, but by hook or by crook, like he's been okay in most of his outings, and like I said, last three have been solid-ish.
Yeah, I know his overall numbers look really bad though. If you look at
Yeah.
like his numbers on the year are just like, oh, that's awful. But I do agree that he's looked better recently. So I'll say Sex Panther because I think he's capable of being better. And if he is, then that's pretty valuable because he's more or less free in the in most mixed leagues, at least shallower mixed leagues. So yeah, I don't mind Jack Flaherty for like a Sex Panther, leaning on Sex Panther, but I don't know which way it's going to go. It's either going to go to scientific fact or it's going to go to I don't believe you. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, I don't think he stays in Sex Panther. I think it's one or the other. I agree.
Right.
He's either gonna collapse in on himself when everybody
Yeah.
realizes he has no velocity, or he's gonna find the velocity again, and it's gonna be fine.
Right.
All right, two more, and then we'll move on to the bullpens and pickups. Jared Schuster, who got the spot start, it looks like he's gonna be in the Atlanta rotation for at least a little bit, and then Rich Hill, who is just defying time one season by season.
Yeah, with Schuster, he reminds me of just about every Braves starter that does well. Like these
Everybody
guys,
drink. Gray mentioned Brave starters.
yeah, like these, yeah, drink. Yeah, I mean, there's like Brave starters just have like they're just so good, and their peripherals just look like, huh? I don't know, man. Like Jared Schuster's peripherals look terrible. Like his numbers look really bad, like beyond bad, like awful. But then he goes out and he throws like a one hitter across what was it, like six innings in his
seven
last start?
strikeouts. Yeah.
Yeah, one hit, one walk. It's like, oh, okay. I guess he's good. I guess he's good now. I don't know. I'm interested for sure, but that's pretty. It's a hesitant interested. I would probably say at this point I'll say Sex Panther.
All right, and then Rich Hill, who, if you ignore his first two starts, one was a 4 inning, 7 earned run effort, so that's not good. He has a 2.35 ERA, Gray, since then. Can I interest you in some Rich Hill?
Yeah, I mean, he's much closer to scientific fact than I think people would actually believe because his peripherals look great. He looks like he's rosterable in just about any league, barring like maybe the shallowest of 10-team mixed leagues. Like Rich Hill looks like he's pitching well. Like it's not bad, like the numbers. So I'm going to say Sex Panther, but leaning on scientific fact.
All right, I like it. No, I've added him in a number of teams. I had him a couple of weeks ago just because it had started turning around, and I mean he's been producing despite the fact that he is 43 years old. Like that's absolutely amazing. That's crazy. All right, let's move over to the bullpens. Miguel Castro has 2 saves last week. Do you have him moving ahead of Andrew Chafin in Arizona for saves, or still just kind of a mess?
No, I think it's still a bit of a mess. I think probably Castro he's due for a blow up, and Chafin's been pretty decent. I don't know. Maybe they're both decent, but either way, I think at worst it is like a timeshare, and at best it's Chafin's job with Castro getting the occasional save. So I would lean on Chafin still, but Castro is probably rosterable in like 15-team mixed leagues and deeper.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. And I think maybe the big thing is that he's like Castro's moved above Scott McHugh, who we thought might be climbing that hierarchy and challenging Chafin. It seems like McHugh, who's had a couple of not ideal outings, he's kind of fallen back to third in the pecking order. Dylan Floro appears to be the closer in Miami for now. They obviously have the injury that they're still waiting on. But at least for now, I think it's Dylan Floro. Do you agree?
Wow. Yeah, well, last week, if people remember, last week I said that Dylan Floro, because of Craig Mish, who's the Marlins beat writer, bid a lot on Floro. So I was pretty much convinced that Floro was going to be the guy because of that, because Mitch knows the Marlins, better than anyone, or at least as good, hopefully, as Skip Schumacher. Hopefully. Actually, I didn't realize, though, Dylan Floro has thrown a ton of innings. Holy crap. I didn't realize he had thrown that. He's already thrown over 21 innings? Wow. That seems like a lot for now, right?
That's a lot on closer. I feel like that's like everyday use almost. Because he doesn't throw like 3 innings.
I think we're roughly like a quarter of the way through the season. So, he's roughly on pace for 80 innings. That's a lot.
He doesn't even throw 2 innings at a time. So it's really like he's being used
a lot.
Constantly.
Yeah.
They have a game, he's out there on the mound, and he's been good. Like, he's been very good for them. 2.49 ERA. He's striking out at over 8K per 9. So he's done his job. All right, so give people some pickups, and then we'll get out of here, Gray.
Okay, so we got a Paul DeJong. Colonel Mustard. He's been great. So DeJong, I didn't really think he was going to even start, let alone be rosterable, but he has been, and he's been really good, at least for the last week. He's probably, he must be borderline. If he wasn't named NL Player of the Week, he had to be borderline because he had a crazy week. Also, I really like Kyle Farmer. I think I've mentioned him before, but he's like a guy who isn't necessarily going to be flashy, like high power, big time speed, neither of those things. But he's a guy who's going to play a lot. He's going to get runs and RBIs. He won't kill you, I don't think, in average. So, he's been good. Francisco Alvarez, don't usually mention catchers on this, but, he's been really great, even though the Mets added Gary Sanchez, which is goofy, but, that's the Mets for you. Francisco Alvarez has been great. He looks really good. Like for fantasy, not like physically. Like he's
not a bad looking dude.
he's fine. He's fine looking. He's squat. He's good. I like him. I like Francisco Alvarez because he reminds me of myself if I put on like 120 pounds. he's great. Who else? Akil Baddoo has been hot recently. So there's that. I don't know. You got any pitchers for the people?
Well, I wanted to first mention it better be Chris Morel. He better win NL Player of the Week because he's never going to get another shot at it. David Ross is going to send him back down to the minors or something. So he better win it while he has a shot to do it.
That's true.
So for this week, I have Brady Singer versus Detroit and versus Washington. He's had a couple of good starts back to back. It's a guy that we both liked in the preseason. I think he might be kind of figuring out his timing and his pitch mix down. Dean Kramer, we had talked about. He gets Texas this week at Texas, so that's not a bad place to go. Matthew Boyd, it's Matt Boyd, so you're getting what you're getting. But he's at Kansas City, so nothing wrong there. Zach Greinke's been kind of in that Rich Hill mode where he's old, but he's getting it done, and he's going to Detroit. And real quick, just a few names: Tristan McKenzie and Vince Velasquez are also coming off of the IL soon. So if you're in a league where there's no IL spots, or like an NFBC league where sometimes those guys have to get dropped to bring in new people, potentially look at adding them to your rosters as we're going forward. Kyle Bradish has been good. Braxton Garrett's been good. I think I mentioned him last week, but this week he's at Colorado, so not running Garrett out there for this one. And Brian Bayo, the Red Sox prospect, he's been pretty solid as well. So I'm interested in all those guys.
Yeah, those are good names.
Yeah, so there's some names on the hitting and pitching side. I think we covered a lot of good names that have been kind of in the comments and that I've seen out there. So if you have any specific ones, or if you did like our quick hitter section with the Anchorman theme, let me know. That way I can make sure that Gray's annoyed and I tell him that next week. And until then, I'll talk to you next week, Gray.
All right, Leeds.